You received a call from an inmate at the Department of Corrections. This call will be recorded and monitored. If you wish to block any future calls of this nature, dial 7 now. To accept this call, press 5 now. To decline this call, hang up.
Well, hello there, Mrs. King. How goes the battle? Okay, well, I have a big issue with the way people are treated in prison concerning their medical attention, and you seem to be a good fighter. You're standing your ground. Plus, you have a really good cause. I mean, your health, your very health, your life depends on good medical treatment, and you got to fight for that. Oh, yeah, I know. It seems like the harder you fight, the taller that hill gets. And so, my hat's off to you for standing your ground and doing the very best you can to keep this in the spotlight. Oh, yeah, definitely. There's a group of us that's working to improve conditions in there. I know you committed a crime. I know you were convicted and sentenced. It doesn't mean you have to live in squalor and that you have to let your health go down. It certainly doesn't mean that you have to put up with people breaking the rules while they insist that you have to follow these same rules. Oh, well, yes, I know that case very well. I'm working with Maryanne Atkins to try and get her name back out in the news so that we can use this issue to go right alongside this gun control thing. I really don't see how her case would have been any different with any more laws. Yeah, I know. I hear that. I hear that a lot. There aren't any criminals out there that want to follow the laws. They're not going to sit there and say, "Well, I can't legally buy a weapon, so I'm not going to commit any crimes." I don't really don't understand how that's supposed to play out in the world. But I do talk to a lot of serial killers and or a lot of convicted murderers, and I don't know. I guess one day somebody's going to say, if it hadn't been easy for me to buy a weapon, I would never have killed anybody. I don't know. But I think that if we do put any bans on there, we're going to get an increase in uh, gun trafficking and home manufacturing. You know, there's a lot of people out there smart enough to make a weapon in their home. And then we've had several people. I know it was prevalent back in the civil rights days when people were fighting for their civil rights, and there was huge discrimination and people weren't being treated equal. I know bombings were quite common, and they even dragged people out and hanged them from trees. And for some reason, they think that we're not going to go back to that kind of stuff. Yeah. I mean, it would be nice for people to live together. It's just, there are some things you have to accept. And there's going to be strife between people for decades to come. We can dream of world peace. We can dream of diversity. We can dream of people getting along. And we should never stop in our efforts to try and unite people. It's just that the reality is there's going to be people, whether it's one or whether it's a million, that are just going to oppose working together, living together,
You have 60 seconds remaining.
and having peace. It does. It does start with the family. And as you know, that's one thing we encourage. We encourage supportive relationships. And with Maryanne, supportive relationships made a huge difference. I'm a full-fledged witness to that. Oh, good. Good. You need to talk to your grandkids. You need to let
You
them
have
know
30 seconds
what
remaining.
happened to you and the reality of crime and punishment and preventive measures and recidivism. There's a lot that pops up in the news and then it disappears. We need to keep it going. Good. Family strong. I agree with you. Well, thanks for the call. I'll talk to you later. Take care of yourself and keep fighting. Good. I'll talk to you later. Hello, and welcome to a QS Inmate Call. I am your host, Joel Wilborn, and this is my introduction to the case of Maryanne Atkins. And I know a lot of people who listen to podcasts, they like to listen to the true crime and get a side of the story that you don't see in the headlines. And this is one of those situations, and hopefully some people will look at it, with their fancy little music and backgrounds and stuff, and instead of really concentrating on the background of the victim, which we often do, maybe take a look at the background of the victim / criminal. Now, anybody familiar with the news magazine Dateline? I like the way it portrays the timeline. It will start out talking about the victim, the family members. They'll interview community members, supportive relationships, siblings, spouses. It's really nice. Anybody who will talk to the Dateline crew, they'll do what they can on the victim. And it really portrays how this person should never have been treated the way that this whole story developed on. And then when it gets to the person who committed the crime, there's really not a lot on it. Sometimes they're able to talk to the person. Sometimes they're able to talk to family members, and you can get a little bit of an insight. And I think that balances out even better. It gives us kind of an idea, because we all want to know the motive. Why did this person commit this crime? What prompted them? And anytime you watch a story develop on the news and watch a trial go underway, you want to know what could have triggered it. And when a person goes into a school, we know why they choose a school. There's a bunch of innocent people in there, and they're easy victims. Let's face it, it's easy to get in there, it's easy to shoot. You're not going to see them go into a military installation. You're not going to see them go into a police place and just start shooting up people. Or like a gun convention. You're not going to see that either. And I know there's people that's criticizing the NRA and stuff, but when you post things like, trespassers will be shot or something like that, they're less likely to come after you. Even the threat of that. So we know the motive behind people choosing what they choose. Churches, schools, grocery stores, former employers. I mean, my first introduction to all of this was the postal worker. And you remember, we even had a phrase, you go postal on them. And there's millions of different people that commit these crimes, and there's millions of different reasons why they do it. And for me, that's important. That's extremely important. I think the reason should be eliminated. We need to get rid of people's reasons to do that, rather than the weapon itself. Now, in the case of Maryanne, she had a tough upbringing. She had the childhood that so many people associate with a violent criminal. And being a female, she just seems to be the target of a lot of men. And it's very tough to deal with that when you're living in a household that's doesn't really show any compassion toward you, and you run away And then you get out there where people are just preying on you. And after talking with her, she's a vindictive person. And even if the person apologizes, and I know this shocked me, she would still want to get something to get that personal satisfaction. And that comes from her background. It comes from how she deals with traumatic events in her life. And a psychiatrist during her trial even testified. They did throw it out because they forced her into a confession. And so it doesn't hide the fact that she had a very rough upbringing. And the prosecution is kind of interesting. They focused a lot on her and her background, yet they dispelled everything. You know, if your friend were to go to trial and you know your friend, you know that this person isn't bad, and they're making this your friend out to be some kind of vicious criminal who planned to do terrible things and had no heart in doing it, you would want the court to know that the person you met and the person sitting on the stand, you know, the person you've known all your life, it's different. And it doesn't surprise you, you know, that this would happen. But you could say this person is not the one you make them out to be. And there's a lot of convicted criminals that do that. You know, I'm not this evil person you make me out to be. And I think the reason they're saying that is because in their mind, what we consider normal is different for them. For them, preying on women is normal for them. For them, murder is normal for them. Theft, alcoholism, beating people up. To them, that's normal. And even a lot of professionals will say that it's very tough to get in the mind of a person who commits a crime, because a lot of us are law-abiding and we don't know what it's like to just disregard the law and go after somebody. What triggers it? You know, 100 years ago, there was a man who was convicted of crimes against little girls. We'll say that. And he had some seizures. So the doctor decided to perform surgery on his brain. He wanted to get in there and see what was going on. So he cuts open the skull and finds a fragment of bone embedded in his brain. So he pulls that bone out, you know, goes through the process, puts the guy on stitches him up and puts him out on his healing process. And when the man wakes up, he's discussing stuff that nobody can quite understand. You know, I hope they don't harm the boy, and it was an accident. You know, he's just saying stuff that just didn't make any sense. Later on, they found out that he was referring to World War I. He was being carried by medical staff, and they dropped him, which knocked off a piece of his skull, and the bone became embedded in his brain. And after removing that segment, those memories came back that had been gone since the bone was in there. And he didn't know where he was. So they told him, you know, you're in prison. Why am I in prison? And it just, you know, you can imagine being told something you never figured you would do. Now, once again, for us to get into the mind of a criminal is impossible. Even with criminals, a lot of times it's tough for them to explain it. But this was devastating to him. And to have him go through this process, that he had this brain injury, and it took away his rationality. He didn't really know what he was doing. And of course, they wanted to look back on it and say, you know, he wasn't in the right mind when he did this. And this brain injury contributed to it. And we should not punish this guy for something he doesn't even remember now. And that particular case just shows you that you have to look at these on an individual basis. Had they known that before he went to trial, had they pulled it out before his sentencing, I'm pretty sure things would have been different. And that's something that came after the fact. Now with Maryanne, she had, you name it, she had been raised just a lot of trauma. And what she said had happened is that she was introduced to this guy, her victim, by a friend of hers. And since Maryanne's running away from home a lot, she's just wandering around the streets of Seattle looking for something to do. And this is just, whatever was said, they came upon this guy. Now, he's a 21-year-old man, and witnesses says he was with these girls, these teenage girls. And this 21-year-old man had his own weapon, and he had over $3,000 with him driving a Jaguar. To me, that throws up a red flag. Why would a 21-year-old man be with two teenage girls? And Maryanne said that he raped her. She had she woke up. She was drugged and she woke up and she was being raped. And so she fought with this guy, got his gun, and shot him. And killed the man. And then she took the wallet, cell phone, and left. They said she posted stuff on Facebook. And she had no remorse. So they're making her out to be this person who had planned to go rob this guy. And then go on Facebook and say, I robbed this guy, I don't care. But there's also another side. What if this person tried to rape her? What would her expression look like? You put the camera on her and say, you've just been convicted of murder. Is she going to cry? Is she going to start attacking people? She felt that what she did was right. She honestly felt that killing this person was the right thing to do, and it was the only way she could get away from him. So to even mention her facial expression after she had said that she had been through a traumatic experience, I don't even see how that would be relevant. No, she wasn't a cold-blooded killer looking at the camera saying, yeah, I killed the person and I don't care. This was her first and only murder. She had no violent crime on her record. These things weren't listed. And you do a search of her on the internet, you'll see two sides. One group is saying that she's a victim and she shouldn't have received a 19-year sentence. So that right there, it doesn't sit right with me. This man was a member of the Liberian Community in the state of Washington. They showed up in force. There was over 40 people in the courtroom wanting her, this teenager, to get the maximum sentence. And they posted on their website, their Facebook page, that if they hadn't shown up, according to the prosecutor, she probably would have received a lesser sentence. Now, when I first met Maryanne, she had just received her sentence, and she was in an adult facility, Washington Correction Center for Women. She was terrible. I mean, she was a rebel and everything. She fought stuff. And here she is with all these adults that prey on her. They were literally using her for their own pleasure. Well, they finally got smart and sent her to a juvenile center, a children's facility where she could stay until she's 25. I was able to talk to her on a more regular basis, and her attitude, her mannerism, her outlook on life changed. She even told me when she gets out, she says she's just going to let people have their way because It's not worth going to prison. It's not worth defending yourself. We're teaching her defending yourself is no excuse. You need to let this happen to you. And that's wrong. And I don't like a 19-year sentence for a teenager. I don't think she's a danger. I talked to her. I said, "You're going to get out and kill somebody again?" She says, "No." And talking to her about events in her past, money isn't a big deal to her. And even now, it's not that big of a deal. She wants friends. She wants to belong. She wants a community. When she was adopted, she felt excited. But her adoptive family didn't accept her the way that she had thought. You watch these sitcoms on TV and you see how dad's supposed to be, mom's supposed to be, and then they're changing them a little bit. When I grew up, families were really close-knit. Now, dad may not be in the picture. Mom might be working 2 jobs. There may be alcoholism, drug abuse. There's a lot that's going on with these kids. And that's where we need to prevent this stuff from happening. Taking guns away. This girl did not have her own gun. She killed this man with his gun. Why? Again, was a 21-year-old around teenage girls. And the Liberian community was saying he was a good man, and she was dragging his name through the mud. Well, I don't know. What else can you do? First of all, the 21-year-old has no business being with a 16-year-old girl, especially 2 of them, in the middle of the night. But for some reason, she was the bad guy. And they said, because she was lying and making this guy look bad, she had to be guilty of all of this. Well, she signed a confession because when a person is in interrogation, police officers don't have to tell the truth. They're not obligated to tell the truth to anybody. What their job is to try to get a confession out. And this 16-year-old who is afraid of going to prison, afraid of the death sentence or whatever, there's fear in her eyes. And they're saying, you killed this person and you show no remorse, and we've got all this evidence against you. Yeah, she's going to do and say anything to get out of it. And that's not just a teenager, that's anybody, even a hardcore military person. When I was in the military, they told us that if they torture you to the point where you're just can't handle it anymore, you can give away the secrets because it's just not worth it. Of course, a lot of them are strong enough to get through it, but even the military understands there's a limit. And with a teenager that's sitting in an interrogation room, there's a limit. And it's really not that hard to get a child, and that's what she was, a child, to start lying. So for a child to lie in that situation doesn't surprise me in the least bit. It's just that they're treating her like an adult and expecting a 16-year-old. Even one of the comments I had on my YouTube channel, she's 16 years old. She's old enough to know what she did. Yeah, she's definitely old enough to know what she did. Yet the people who are supposed to be her mentors, who are supposed to be guiding her and teaching her, they're old enough to know what she did as well. And they're old enough to know that there's no cut and dry answer to anything out there. When people kill, there's something that snaps in their mind. And she did not bring a gun to that crime. She used the resources that were available to her. And I hope that you can do a search on Maryanne Atkins and just kind of look at it, maybe talk to your friends about it. Let's try to get that information out there. Let's help her. She is a really good person, and in the interviews I did with her, she gives advice. She's already paid her retribution to the victims. The money she stole, she paid that back. If this victim was such an outstanding member of the community, it would be like a Dateline show. Person went to school, graduated, came to this country, helped other folks. The money that was stolen from him was given to charity. something to show that he was a good man. I'm not saying that he deserved to be killed, but if she received a 19-year sentence, that's because you shot somebody that was very helpful, very useful to the community, had no reason to be in harm's way. And I just don't think that's the case here. I think this man had done something wrong, starting with being with a couple of teenage girls. And the condition they found his body, come on. You're not found like that when you're innocent. So I'm going to really look into this, try to communicate with this Liberian community who said that, we ran from civil war and we came into this country thinking that we were going to have it better, and then this happens. Well, yeah, if you're involved in sex trafficking, drug trafficking, assault, theft, yeah, it doesn't matter what country you come from. That we don't accept that here. And this is something that needs to be looked into. And we don't need to be broadcasting that she planned all of this, planned to kill this guy when she didn't even bring a weapon to the crime scene. He did it. And when you carry a weapon, you know there's a risk that you could be shot with it. You know that. Well, please take a look at Maryanne Atkins. Please take a look at my YouTube channel. You can even go to AmericanQuentinSociety.org. Look at my website. And let's see what you think. Do you think she got what she deserved? Or do you think that this was a little overkill? And could her situation help you and your family? So go out, have yourself a beautiful day, and make super fantastic memories for tomorrow.